Greetings all! Today we will be re-examining the rare Psychic-type Pokemon Wynaut, the Bright Pokémon, and its equally rare evolution Wobbuffet, the Patient Pokémon. Though they might appear to be a bit too odd to take seriously, the members of the Wynaut family can be one's worst nightmare if their potentially devastating counterpower can't be countered itself.
Wynaut have pale blue bodies with small digiless feet and a pair of ear flaps that serve as arms for them in place of actual arms. They have a large, rounded head with a wide, jagged mouth, thin eyes, a large oblong lump on their forehead, and a small black tail with a large white eye form with a pinprick black pupil. Their evolved form, Wobbuffet, also have a large blue body with 4 small bulbous feet that support their large oblong body form with a pair of semi-flat digiless arms and a large oblong lump on the back of their head. They retain the odd thin eyes of Wynaut, albeit in a different shape, but their black tail now has 2 eye marks on it.
While Wobbuffet usually hatch from eggs completely grown and with their full complement of powers, the presence of certain odors, namely those in lax incense, radically alters their development cycle and causes them to initially be born as Wynaut instead.
While Wynaut cannot utilize any of the moves that Wobbuffet specialize in from birth, they are born with their own unique complement of moves that help them survive in the wild, namely Charm, Encore, and Splash, though not as effectively as Wobbuffet. In fact, the only power the Wynaut share at birth with their evolved form is their Shadow-type ability, which prevents opponents from fleeing or escaping them in battle, as well as the psychic potential to have telepathy as a hidden ability. In order to grow stronger, Wynaut tend to live and sleep together in large groups, pushing up against one another forcefully on moonlit nights, as it provides cover against both daytime predators and those that use the cover of night to their advantage, plus it strengthens their spirits and endurance against pain. In time, Wynaut will eventually become strong enough to be able to both take damage and deliver counterattacks with their psychic powers and evolve, but only if they choose to do so. As odd as it may seem, Wynaut usually don't evolve on their own in the wild, even after acquiring their full array of powers, preferring to stay amongst others of their kind. The reason behind this is because a neurological block that normally prevents Wobbuffet from expressing passionate emotions is not present within Wynaut, thus allowing them to feel a much wider array of emotional states. On the downside, however, a genetic defect causes Wynaut to always have a smile on their faces, which in turn sometimes hides their true emotional state. Anger tends to be the emotion most frequently missed by novice trainers, but it can easily be spotted if one has a sharp watch on these creatures' tails, as they usually slap the ground repeatedly with them when agitated.
As far as personality goes with their evolved form, however, you would be better off looking for a visible emotional response from a Magikarp, as a neurological defect within the brains of Wobbuffet, mentioned previously, creates a mental block that prevents them from completely feeling and visibly demonstrating much in the way of emotion, leaving them in a near constant state of melancholy neutrality.
For trainers that cannot connect to their Pokemon on a non-visual basis, this can prove to be an insurmountable task to overcome, and will often prove to be the ultimate downfall in battle. In addition to being monotone in emotional disposition, Wobbuffet are inherently stubborn when near others of their own species, and will often attempt to compete with one another in tests of endurance. Occasionally, however, Wobbuffet may attempt to outdo each other to the highest degree by seeing who can endure hunger the longest. If both competitors are strong-willed, this can go on for long periods of time and may not end until one of them dies of starvation. Trainers that observe this sort of behavior in the Wobbuffet or a different one in the wild should try to stop it immediately, if only for the sake of the health of those involved. As far as the stats go in the case of Wobbuffet, these beasts have extremely weak bodies and are unable to really move very fast to do much to physically defend themselves, so most of their stats are below average for a fully evolved Psychic-type Pokemon. The sole exception to this is their base HP stat, which is more than above average in this context, granting them the highest base HP stat out of all Psychic-type Pokemon, and thus giving them the capacity to at least hang around for a while in a fight.
Aside from their unique abilities and often vibrant personalities, Wynaut are particularly set apart from other Psychic-type Pokemon by their food preferences.
While most Psychic-types generally rely on little food or at least show little in the way of preference when eating, Wynaut absolutely loves sweet fruits and berries, particularly lychee berries, although they are incredibly rare in the wild, and will almost never eat anything that isn't sweet-tasting. This appears to be because Wynaut need to break down large volumes of sugar in order to fuel their psychic powers. As such, Wynaut are some of the only non-physical psychic types that need a healthy diet in order to utilize their powers to the utmost. Wynaut groups have been known to migrate miles away from their regular nesting grounds the moment one smells something sweet in the air, even if they are merely led to a human-owned fruit farm. Thankfully, Wynaut are usually welcomed by locals because they rarely ever eat more than their fill of fruit and are more than happy to work for their food from time to time. Despite their small size and obvious lack of physical strength, Wynaut are able to utilize their odd ears much like regular arms, picking fruits and carrying around objects without expending much energy. Along with being quite efficient, this mode of articulation often proves to be rather humorous to watch, only adding on to their already charming appearances.
Wobbuffet are almost always found within the darkness of caverns or outside under the cover of night, only ever going outside during the day to search for berries to eat in emergency situations or when there are no caves within sight.
Wobbuffet hate direct sunlight, and hate even more being scared or surprised, but not because of their own personal well-being. Oddly enough, Wobbuffet prefer to remain out of sight because they want to keep their tails hidden. For the longest time, scientists could not understand why Wobbuffet, which are normally quite placid, were so protective of their tails and would viciously attack anyone that dared to strike their tails. Recent evidence, however, has shown a very logical reasoning behind their reclusive natures. Their tail is actually the real Wobbuffet. What is not so clearly observed in Wynaut, in the case of both of them and Wobbuffet, the bulk of their intelligence lies in their tail, and the rest of the body is nothing more than a large squishy puppet containing the rest of their vital organs. This may explain why both Wynaut and Wobbuffet lack much in the way of a skeletal system, and thus possess such abnormal body shapes. If the tail of a Wobbuffet is ever damaged, it can temporarily or even permanently shut off the tentative neural connections between the brain and the body, and thus hinder their capacity to attack in battle or even function at all. As a result of this, and perhaps out of spite, Wobbuffet rarely ever let the opposition have the last laugh if their tails are attacked. The moment their tail is struck, Wobbuffet will utilize the one technique their brains can use without needing the rest of their body, the infamous Destiny Bond technique, to take their opponent down with them. In terms of combat ability, Wobbuffet are both useless and completely unstoppable in the right circumstances. On this note, instead of focusing on their own personal strength in battle, Wobbuffet utilize their tempered spirits and incredible endurance to absorb damage and reflect it back at their opponent for twice the impact through the usage of their counter and mirror code attacks. In order to increase the effectiveness of their strikes, Wobbuffet may also inflate their bodies during the counterattack. Why this works, however, is currently a mystery. While Wobbuffet are relatively soft-skinned and unable to put up much resistance against damage, their massive HP reserves enable them to easily take many powerful blows before falling. Combined with the Safeguard technique for preventing status conditions and their aforementioned Destiny Bond technique for taking down exceptionally powerful opponents, this makes Wobbuffet both the ultimate anti-offensive and anti-defensive weapon at the same time. Worse yet, as mentioned already, their Shadow Type ability prevents opponents from fleeing under normal circumstances, as it physically links the spirit of Wobbuffet and their opponent together for the duration of battle. Unfortunately, this all comes with the obvious drawback of preventing Wobbuffet from ever making the first strike in battle, but defensively minded trainers should have no trouble adjusting to this issue with practice.
I have seen a lot of strange Pokemon in my time in this world, and I can safely say that these beasts are some of the most unique that I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. They are both really cute and fun to be around, even if it's just because Wobbuffet tend to look and act really silly in the eyes of many, and the fact that they really can attack others directly with any moves they learn naturally means that, on paper, they might seem totally defenseless and harmless. And for the most part, that's not wrong. Wynaut can't even defend themselves properly until they reach the point of evolution. But once that does happen, both it and their evolution can potentially become some of the most dangerous Pokemon that anyone can ever encounter. Sure, they can't deliver that vital first strike, but they can literally counter any direct attack that is thrown their way and smash back with twice the force they are hit with. As such, against really powerful Pokemon, their massive HP reserves can actually do them a huge favor because, in combination with their bad defenses, they can survive extremely dangerous attacks, maybe just barely, and then strike back with enough force to likely knock out an opponent. It's still a big gamble for using the right move, as you have to be able to predict the type of attack or move the opposition is likely to use against them. But if you can master the usage of their basic moves, it is possible to make these living punching bags into a viable threat, and not something to laugh at once they start taking down opponents much larger and stronger than themselves.
Awkward as their forms might appear to many, and as bizarre as their behavior tends to be, there is no doubt that the members of the Wynaut family are unique beasts that can either make or break a battle depending upon the luck of the draw and strategy in most cases. You may have to be a master of predicting the opponent's moves in order to make the most of them, but given how much stamina they have to work with, this may not always prove to be as hard to do as one might think.
Just do yourself a favor and make sure not to use them for punching bags if it's not just for friendly sparring. They might not be able to fight much, but you can be sure they'll knock you back with twice the force if you get a bit too smart with them.
Thank you for watching this video. It brings me great joy to be able to speak to you all in the world each and every time we meet like this, to explore the many different facets of both the world of Pokemon as we know it, and the world as we live it, through every adventure we have with Pokemon by our side. If you'd like to, please subscribe, ring the bell, and all that jazz to keep yourself updated on content uploads and other materials of the like. You can also follow me on Twitter if you'd like to know right away when something new is uploaded, and my written works, from which most of this is based on, can be found on DeviantArt. Links to both can be found in the description down below. Remember that the world of Pokemon is a place full of wonder and mystery, and you never know what to expect. So, stay vigilant, keep watch, and always be prepared for the unexpected. Until next time, trainers and friends of all sorts, have a wonderful time.